Welcome back, everyone. It's Carrie again. Today we're going to have a little more fun. So what I did was I looked back in my life, and because I was talking about dating yesterday, it seemed appropriate to think about cooking. Women are supposed to be really good cooks, and I will tell you, I have found that men are probably better cooks than women in my book, but that's just in my life. Um, I wasn't really raised to cook. Um, it, I wasn't really taught, I should say. Most of what I know how to cook are authentic German dishes because my grandmother was legit from Germany, and I'm going to do a video on heritage because my heritage is pretty interesting. I was the firstborn American in my mother's family. So we came from Europe. My family did. And so my grandma, who spoke a lot of German and had this super thick, rich accent, it was just beautiful. Um, when I hear somebody speak it now, to this day, it can bring tears to my eyes because she's passed, and she was just the most wonderful woman to me. It was my grandma. And she would teach us how to make these German dishes that then, my mother would sometimes cook, and then, I had picked them up as well. But my mom wasn't a big cook. She either was working full time or she was trying to run a business or off doing all of her social stuff. And from a very young age, especially I recall the age of 12, I was kind of taking care of the family. I got me and my brothers and sisters up in the morning and fed us breakfast. I got us, dinner after school and, took care of the house. And, my mom would help clean once in a while on a Saturday, but it was basically me taking care of an entire family. Well, it caused me to think back to one of my first cooking experiences for cooking for men, really is what this is about. Because I noticed that the only times I mess up horrifically is when I'm cooking for a man. I don't know if I'm nervous or what the deal is, but I can cook for a family just fine. I had many, family, when I was married, family engagements, Thanksgivings, and Christmases where I cooked just tons of food. And everything was good. Everything turned out great. However, whenever I'm cooking specifically for a man, it seems like it's just an epic disaster. So we'll start with my dad. My dad was a truck driver, so he was hardly ever home. And this one weekend, he was going to be home, and I remember, my mom, I think, had to work that Saturday or something, and she worked quite a few Saturdays. And she, when we didn't really have much for groceries in the house. So first, my dad, mom said, make, pork chops and potatoes for supper. I'm like, okay, I knew how to do that. So I was 16 at the time that this actually happened because I could drive. I had my driver's license. So I was 16 or 17 years old. Now, I had gone to the grocery store once in a while with my mother, but very seldom. I was normally taking care of my baby brother, who was 8 years younger than me. So he was about 8 or 9 at the time. And my sister would always go to the grocery store with my mother. And that happened since basically my brother was born. I had to stay there to take care of the baby. And so I didn't know a whole lot about grocery shopping, first of all. So my dad gives me this blank check. He says, go to the grocery store, get the stuff that we need. And he goes, not just for the meal, but, for the house. Look at what we need for groceries. We go do the grocery shopping. Okay. I'm going to get what I want. I'm sorry, but I don't know what my mom buys. I didn't really pay attention. I just cooked what I was told to cook. I, knew what to feed my brothers and sisters, in the morning and at night, and that was it. So I knew we needed those basics. But then there was also, every once in a while, mom would get extras. So we go to the grocery store, and I buy like $400 worth of food. It was between $200 to $400, somewhere in there. And come home, and first off, nobody notices it until the next day. Um, but that night, I make the pork chops. Well, you have to realize, my father didn't have top teeth, and he didn't wear dentures. This happened, he lost his teeth when he was about 14 years old. His mother had died when he was about 14, and somewhere between 14 and 16, his teeth got so bad that I remember him telling us stories that he would have to put them on the radiator from the heat just to keep the pain to go away. And I can't even imagine what their household was like without their mother, there. And they did eventually get a stepmother, which apparently they hated. But by the time they took him to the dentist, they had to remove all of his teeth. So they took all his top teeth out. Did give him dentures then, but later in life he didn't wear them. And so I never thought anything wrong with somebody with no teeth because I was raised with a man with no teeth. And yes, that seemed perfectly normal to me, whether you have teeth or not. Actually looked better than some people with, a whole bunch of random missing teeth. So I didn't, or people with dentures, doesn't bother me at all, in the least. But anyway, back to the story. While I make these pork chops, and I always like my meat cooked well done, or done, no blood in it. I can't handle that. And in the Bible, it says we're not supposed to either, so keep that in mind. And though I wasn't biblical back then, it says just how I liked my meat. So I made it to my liking, not realizing, because remember, my father was hardly ever home. It's not like we cooked for him a lot. And it was too hard for him to eat. He couldn't chew it. He was wicked mad, furious, ruined the whole supper. I remember just being in fear because he was that angry. And I don't even remember if we finished eating that night or what even happened, to be honest with you. It was so traumatizing, I can't even tell you how the end of it went. I was that freaked out at how angry he got. But that was, okay, so the first man I ever cooked with my father, and really, really bad. So then, and by the way, the next day, when my parents found out, they asked, well, how much was the check? And I told them. They freaked out. They had to literally go to the grocery store and make payment arrangements with the grocery store because they didn't have that kind of money. And yeah, that was the last time I was ever sent to the grocery store. And then when I started shopping for myself, boy, did I learn. He was like, oh yeah, that was bad thing you did there, Carrie. That was stupid. So, eventually I learned the value of $1 and what to buy and what not to buy. Anyway, second guy I had to cook for was my first husband. So we had been together a while. And, we had made random things, but all of a sudden one night I was going to make this great Italian feast of spaghetti, my homemade spaghetti, with sauce and everything. Well, as I'm making it, I tend to put a lot of salt and pepper in the meat and in the sauce. And other spices, of course, but it was the pepper that was the trick, right? Anyway, it gave it a little extra zing, so I'd put extra pepper in. And he sat down, I made him up a plate, and he sat down to eat. And I'm cleaning up the dishes and stuff first, and I'll sit down and eat later. By the time I sit down to eat, I notice him, he's just sweating bullets, and his face is solid red, and he has just a little bit left on his plate. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, and he's drinking milk. I'll tell you something right there. I sit down, I take one bite, and I spit it out. I had used chili pepper instead of the hot chili pepper instead of pepper. And there was so much of it in there. It was a fire in your mouth. It was horrid. It was really bad. And by the time I realize this, I look at his plate's clean, and I go, how did you eat that? How did you eat that entire plate of food? I was like, I don't know, just ate it. So, see, now there's a good story where my first husband, this was early on in our marriage, where he had a heart. And he wasn't going to hurt my feelings and tell me how awful the food was. He literally ate that entire flaming ball on fire plate of food. And he comes from a family that had no real spice background. They didn't use spices in anything, or Tabasco or stuff like that. So keep in mind that was trial by fire for him, and it was probably pretty darn bad. So, well, it was bad. I couldn't eat it. I wouldn't. I threw the whole thing away. I'm not eating this. There's no way. This is awful. So, it's pretty bad when you can't eat your own cooking. The third time I cooked for a guy would have been my second husband. And he was bringing over his kids. I mean, we had gone out to eat and stuff the week or two that we knew each other before I met his kids. So I had never cooked for him. But he was bringing his children over. They were 9 and 11. I got them gifts, and I wanted to make this perfect meal. And we were going to have pork chops, potatoes, and corn. with gravy. And so I made homemade gravy. I made, everything, from scratch, my mashed potatoes and all that, and cooking the pork chops. Well, my problem was, by this point, I had mastered cooking pork chops, okay? So, it's not the pork chops, though I'll probably never make them for another human being again, because it's always a failure. They taste great when I make them for myself, but not for anybody else. I had bought lean pork chops instead of the regular ones, and I was used to the timing and the heat and everything for regular pork chops. Well, when they're lean, you don't cook them as long or at as high a temperature. So by the time I took them out of the oven, put them on the plates, and they're trying to eat them, they're like, literally, I sat down and go, they're hockey pucks. They're hard as a rock. And I thought, these kids aren't going to be able to eat this. Oh my gosh, now what are we going to have? And then my mashed potatoes, I must have been nervous or something, I put too much butter and milk in, and it was like soup. It was like potato soup. So that was awful. Nothing was turning out. So then we looked at my cupboards, and I go, well, mac and cheese? Of course, they were kids. Sure, they'll have mac and cheese. So I make that, but of course I boil the noodles on the stove, and I overboil them. So when we're eating the mac and cheese, it's super bland. I don't know if you ever overboil noodles. They're horrible. They're just gonna yuck. And so that didn't work out. So then finally, my, second husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, goes, why don't we order carry out? We did. So we had carry out. He went and got it. We did end up having a great night. That was, I cooked for them after that, and everything turned out great. And the moral of that story is when he proposed to me, um, he proposed in a restaurant. It wasn't when I made a meal. So that tells you right there. It was a safer bet if we were in a restaurant for that proposal. um, I don't know if I'll ever cook for another man again, um, because third time was not a charm in that situation. But I do have to say that everybody who attempted to eat some of those awful meals, um, I'm proud of both of my ex-husbands for that. And as I've said before, they weren't always bad guys. People have a heart up to a point, and then they let other things influence them and change who they are and the types of things that they would do. And that's really, I think, what happened in both my marriages. And I have to say me as well. I can't say that I didn't change. I went through a lot of changes too, but I don't know. Why don't you guys tell me in the comments, if I was to cook for you, what you would want me to make you. Um, Things that I'm good at, of course, my German food, straight from Germany, authentic. I could go over to Germany and they'd think I blended right in if I was to cook for them, because I know them all. A lot of Italian food, Mexican. I can't cook Asian food or Chinese for the life of me. I mean, I can. It just doesn't taste anywhere near the authentic, food. So I would say carry out or takeout on that, because their takeout is, Asian food is so phenomenal. They have the spicing down to a T, and I crave it sometimes. I hate to say, but I do. I just love their food. Um, Homemade pizza is a good old-fashioned thing for me, but I'm on this kick right now where I said this almost 3 years ago, when I left my husband, that I make a fabulous homemade lasagna. Okay, all from scratch, and that I've never messed up. I mean, this is my recipe. That 3 years ago, I would never make my lasagna again till God put the right man in my life, and we would have this perfect date where we could make my lasagna together. I haven't made it in 3 years. I'm probably thinking I'm never going to make it again for the rest of this human existence. So, but so be it. It is what it is. I got me. I got God. I got a cat named Violet. Who needs anything more? Well, I do it my way. The Bible verse I have picked for this wonderfully short video, and I'm happy it's short too, by the way, is Proverbs chapter 21, verse 22. When a scoffer is punished, the simple become wise. That's me, simple become wise. When a wise man is instructed, he gains knowledge. Moral of that, get instruction on cooking before you cook for your men or your women. Take good instruction. Don't be nervous because, as you see, a wise man gets instruction. And I was clearly a scoffer being punished. So, alright, on that note, I hope you all have a super wonderful day. Enjoy whatever you have to eat, and I pray to God that everybody that sees this video has a meal and is not starving. My hearts go out to anybody who is struggling, even trying to, find the ingredients or something to even make a meal. And let's put those people in our prayers tonight. Alright. Have a great day. Love ya. Bye.